Welcome to this edition of The District. I am Joan Garner, your Fulton County Commissioner for District 6. On today's show, we will be joined by Myrna Anderson Fuller, the Executive Director of the Hammonds House Museum, and Edward Spriggs, former and founding Director of the Hammonds House Museum. This year, we recognize the 25-year legacy of the Hammonds House Museum as a unique and vital institution and reflect on the cultural contributions of its former owner, renowned physician and arts patron, Dr. Otis Thrash O.T. Hammonds. The Hammonds House Museum is nestled on a quiet residential street in Atlanta's historic West End at 503 Peoples Street. The museum opened in 1988 to continue Dr. Hammond's commitment to preserving and celebrating art from the African diaspora and offers a year-round calendar of fine art exhibitions and cultural programming. We have a great show planned. Don't go away. When we come back, we'll be on location at the Hammonds House Museum. Stay tuned.
Well, Commissioner Gardner.
Hi, how are you, Ed?
Fine.
It's great to
Fine.
see you.
Good.
Yes, yes. Hammonds House, I love the Hammonds House.
We're going to go right in the green room.
The green room, one of my favorites. Ed, it's so great to be here.
Good
Great
to
to
be
see
here.
you.
Likewise.
Yes, so
Appreciate it.
tell us what your involvement has been with the Hammonds House Museum.
Well, I've been involved since the beginning, let's say for the 25 years, but first 15 as the founding director. I had the opportunity to make a proposal for how the county could utilize this building after Dr. Otis T. Hammonds, for whom it's named, passed away. And I made that proposal through Chuck Williams, the commissioner, who championed the idea through the commission, and we ended up having access to this building in 1988.
Did you actually know Dr.
Yes.
Hammonds?
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the relationship?
Well,
and a little bit about him.
Hammond was really a man about the arts in town. He was very involved from the point of view of being on the board at the High Museum, being on the art advisory committee at Atlanta Life Insurance Corporation, which used to do an annual national exhibition of African American art. And he was also the chairman of the board at the time of his death of the Neighborhood Arts Center, which was one of the premier, it was actually one of 5 schools that Maynard Jackson dedicated to arts use. These were schools that were no longer being used. So Hammonds was very much involved as a collector. He influenced most of the doctors who were collecting here in town, at least at that time. Some of who have emerged as major collectors, shall we say. But he was, in addition to that, very involved in promoting the arts. He would be the person who would do a soiree in his home when Avon Ailey group came to town. And as I mentioned, he was on the board at the High Museum. So it was always his soirees, for instance, were a place where people could gather and mix at a time when there was very little cross-cultural mixing in Atlanta. But OT was a catalyst for that. So he was very much involved citywide in the arts.
Great. Could you tell us, tell our viewing audience, what is the relevance of the Hammonds House to the arts community in general, and particularly to this community?
Sure. Well, the reason why the notion for a museum flew so well here was that in Atlanta at the mid-'80s, there were very few opportunities and institutions, except for some, like the Neighborhood Arts Center, and then you had Apex Museum, which is not an art museum per se, but which is a history museum. And you had Herndon Home. But this city is also known for its holdings in African American art. If you take a look at what goes on at the Clark Atlanta University, at Spelman, these are schools with art departments and collections now with museums. And so there's always been activities in the visual arts, but there was no museum, and there was very few opportunities to bring artists from other parts of the country to Atlanta or other parts of the world. So that was one of the things that we had wanted to solve, or at least to introduce to Atlanta, that there was a great wealth of art around the country and around the world that we're just not seeing, and that the Hammonds House could play a role in that. O.T. Hammonds, I mentioned, was a collector, so he had in his collection many works that represented nationally known artists. Everybody knows Romare Bearden's name.
Yes. And
he had a suite of Romare Bearden works in his collection that are now on view, I believe, at the Carlos Museum.
Yes.
And that Bearden exhibition that's there.
In fact, I've seen that exhibit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So, but you can see that regularly here at Hammonds House.
And I've seen it here at Hammonds House. Yes.
But in the context of those other pieces, it's really a great contribution. Those were collected directly from Bearden to O.T. Hammonds. O.T. Hammonds became a friend of Bearden and his wife Nanette, and so he began to collect them. I think he was introduced to them by Richard Long.
Oh yes.
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 So there was a long, lasting relationship there. This is Dr. O.T. Hammonds.
Yes.
And that's really the kind of smile that he always lit up a room with.
Yes.
And these are pictures that were taken by
Lucinda Bunnan, it says.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
And so within these pictures you have Dr. Richard Long, you have James Jackson, you have some very young pictures of
Ingrid Saunders
Jones,
yes.
Lillian Lewis, and of course the centerpiece is really O.T. Hammonds.
Yes.
Loving to entertain.
Yes. Well, this room is one of my favorite rooms, and it has such an eclectic collection here. Could you talk a little bit about some of the work that's here in this room?
This is a Louis Del Sarte watercolor there,
yes.
which is in his collection. This is a print by John Riddle, who actually was the director of the Neighborhood Arts Center, while O.T. Hammonds was chairman of the board there. You have pieces by Nigerian artists, Z.K. Olorentoba. But then you look across the room above the fireplace,
yes,
and you have painting, 1841, Robert S. Duncanson.
Yes.
Robert Duncanson was a house painter who decided that he wanted to be a fine artist. And so to make his living, he was doing what's called limner paintings. These were paintings that were kind of set up for people of means who could have portraits made of their families. And of course, most of the clothing and stuff was kind of staged, but the faces are the people. This is not typical of his work. This is what he did to make a living. He became a landscape artist, which is what he wanted to do.
Okay.
And his work was related to what's called the Hudson River School.
Yes.
His landscapes. But he's, so sometimes it's like a footnote to say that he was one of them. But mostly he's ignored in that history.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's another Z.K. Olorentoba over there.
Okay, great. So what would you like our audience to know about Dr. Hammond? Anything else that you'd like to say about that and the Hammonds House and the contributions that it's making to this community?
Sure. You ask such complex questions in a certain way, but that's all right. I'll try to roll with it. Dr. Hammonds brought to Atlanta the idea that we should be collecting African American artists. He was part of the medical association, and he encouraged the doctors in his community to collect, to do something with their, expendable income. But he also made a way for people to collect by having exhibitions, say, at the Neighborhood Arts Center. He supported that with by bringing Bearden there. There was a gallery there named for Bearden, for instance. So it put a lot of focus on a high level of art. But Hammonds was a traveler, so he had a collection of Haitian art. There's none represented in this room at this time, but his Haitian art was collected in Haiti, and it represents some of the premier Haitian art that we know about today. In addition, he collected works from different nationally known African American artists.
Yes.
If you would name someone like Jake Lawrence.
Yes.
You could name someone like Sam Gilliam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a variety of others, but he was always wherever he went, he was collecting art, and he was looking, and he was making sure that people knew about Atlanta as well, in his notion about connecting people with the art that Atlanta had to offer. So artists began to, through the exhibitions, not only at the Neighborhood Arts Center, but at the Atlanta Life,
Yes.
begin to see Atlanta as a kind of a mecca. They saw it as an economic mecca for the most part, but they began to see it as a culture mecca.
Yes.
And Hammonds was one of those who made that kind of thing, that perception possible. So.
Well, thank you so much, Ed. I appreciate hearing the history about Dr. Hammonds and his collection and being here. And I want to personally thank you for your contributions, especially in writing that proposal to get the grant to open Hammonds House Museum. And thank you for your leadership.
That was the easy part.
It's great. Yes. Happy 25 years.
Oh,
huh?
thank you. It is happy 25 years.
Great.
April 27th. We're
Great.
celebrating that here.
Thank you. You're watching The District. We have a great show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The District. We hope you enjoyed our visit to the Hammonds House Museum, and we are now joined by Myrna Anderson Fuller, the Executive Director of the Hammonds House Museum. Myrna, welcome to The District.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's great to have you. To start, would you please tell our listening audience how you became involved with the Hammonds House and what your current position is?
I'm the Executive Director and have been the Executive Director since 2004. And I actually started on the Fulton County Arts Council as an appointee by Commissioner Hightower. And during that time, the museum was in its infancy, and Ed Spriggs was a staff member on the council, and he was charged with actually filing for the 501c3 to start Hammonds House Museum. And as a committee member, I met with him, and I think there were 7 other people, for months in order to make what was then a dream a reality.
So what artists have exhibited over the years?
We've had many. We actually pulled out all of our archives over the last 25 years last year, just to get an idea who had exhibited and make sure that our records were starting to be compiled in a fashion that people could actually research. I think we counted 108 artists that have exhibited over the years. We do 5 to 6 changing exhibitions a year. So we've had everyone from renowned artists such as Elizabeth Catlett, Samela Lewis, Hale Woodruff, and of course our emerging artists, and we're very proud of Radcliffe Bailey and the strides that he has made within the arts arena in terms of being accepted and known on a national level.
So I understand that the Hammonds House Museum has recently formed a relationship with the Auburn Avenue Research Library. Could you tell us about that relationship?
Sure.
And how that came about?
Very excited about it. As many of our patrons know, Auburn Avenue Research Library is going to be closing for renovations. So during that period of discussion, and we've had an ongoing relationship with the library in terms of programming, in terms of making sure that we kept up with their programming and often supported one another. So when that happened, then we realized that the possibility of their ability to hold programming within the community might cease. Then we got together and said, well, why don't we put programming over at Hammonds House Museum? What a wonderful, wonderful match. And so that's what we started to do. Actually, early last year in 2013, we had our first Auburn Avenue / Hammonds House Museum exhibition, and it was called Homecoming. And it was a wonderful 2 months of people being able to look at their family histories. It was actually about families of color within Georgia. But it gave us the opportunity to have people of all ethnic backgrounds take a look at how they can reach back into their ancestry and see and form all of the backgrounds as to bringing forth to current what their families look like. So that's where it started, and we've actually slated carved out, I should say, a mini exhibition space for them.
Wow, that
and
sounds
so
good.
the first exhibition that they did this year was a tribute to Trayvon Martin, which was immensely popular.
Wow, thank you. So tell us about the significance of the upcoming 25th anniversary and how that relates to Fulton County.
That we really were an outgrowth from Fulton County. Then Fulton County Chairman Michael Lomax, who also was instrumental in formulating the National Black Arts Festival and several other organizations, along with Hammonds House Museum, and that was 25 years ago. So we are celebrating not only our 25th anniversary, but also recognizing Dr. Otis Thrash Hammonds as a wonderful patron of the arts. You know, he was a Renaissance man, way before his time in terms of forward thinking, or I should say ahead of his time. So we feel that it's very fitting that we not only let the public know who he was, but what his contributions were, because he was the chairman of the then Neighborhood Arts Center, which at that time was the only center that showcased artists of color, not just visual artists, but performing artists as well. People such as Samuel L. Jackson and Spike Lee, and the list goes on. Romare Bearden actually walked through those doors. And at that time in the early 70s, that was quite a wonderful experience for this community to have.
Wow. So the gathering sounds like a wonderful event. What can the public expect to experience?
It's going to be totally different from anything anyone has ever experienced. It will not be your typical awards celebration, no. We want to do many art experiences. So from the time that our guests walk in the front door on the red carpet, they will be greeted by the press, and from then on there will be jazz in the garden area. We have Kevin Spears, a kalimba player who is just a wonderful musician. He'll be in our upstairs gallery playing wonderful melodic music. We'll have a wonderful experience for artists or our guests actually to become artists. So we'll have a community art experience. We'll have fashions by Suko Betty, who is a wonderful up-and-coming designer. Very, very fresh, sassy kinds of fashionable clothing that everyone can enjoy. And the list goes on. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Radcliffe Bailey, who has graciously donated a piece of his artwork that he has actually created for this occasion that we will be raffling off.
That's great. It sounds wonderful. So could you tell us how the public can get involved with the Hammonds House Museum?
On many levels, on many levels. First of all, volunteerism. We welcome our volunteer pool of people who would like to get involved in many different areas. We have docents who are those volunteers who wish to know more about art and culture, so we conduct classes for them. We also have volunteers who want to help out on a day-to-day basis as administrators, and of course our docents also give our tours. I needed to go back and say that. And then we have volunteers who just like to be our greeters for our special occasions, such as Wine and Words that we just had this past week. So we have many events where we need volunteers to help us out. And of course, membership. Membership is very, very important to us because our members are our ambassadors who carry the message about who we are and what it is that we do. And membership is very affordable. It starts at $15 and goes up. So a family of 4 can become members for just $40 a year. So membership, volunteers, and of course we always welcome corporate support. And the fundraiser is another way that we are able to raise funds. Even though we are a Fulton County facility, it needs to be known that in order for programming to exist and to continue, we rely on public and private support. So we really do hope that people will come out and support the fundraiser, the gathering on the 27th, because this is going to be truly not only a fun event, but a way for us to realize our financial commitments.
Great. Myrna, would you tell our listening audience how they might be in contact with the Hammonds House?
Certainly. Well, first of all, they need to go to our website. So that I just touched on a very, very small, minute part of all of our programming. So if they go to the website, they'll be able to see the programs that we've done in the past, the programs that we currently are involved with, such as our writing intensive for high school students, a teacher grant program that we have going on. So to answer your question, hammondshouse.org to find out more information. They can actually join as members online. We do have a Facebook and a Twitter page. And of course, they can contact us by calling 404-612-0500.
Thank you, Myrna. It's been great having you on the show today. I wish you well with the 25th anniversary celebration.
And thank you for your support. You've always been there for us, and we can't thank you and the entire Board of Commissioners for their support.
Great. Thank you, Myrna, for joining us. When we return, I will share my closing thoughts. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the district. I am Joan Garner, your Fulton County Commissioner for District 6. Today, we were joined by Edward Spriggs, former and founding director of the Hammonds House Museum, and Myrna Anderson Fuller, the current executive director of the Hammonds House Museum. For 25 years, the Hammonds House Museum has been a mecca for people seeking inspiration, interaction, and intellectual stimulation centered on art of the African diaspora. The museum has redefined the experience of art by providing thought-provoking exhibitions and cultural events in an environment that is comfortable, mind-expanding, and uniquely attuned to the interests and needs of the patrons of every age. Happy 25th anniversary, Hammond's House Museum. I want to thank Edward Spriggs and Myrna Anderson Fuller for the helpful information they provided us today, and thank you for joining us on The District. That's our show for today. Feel free to contact my District 6 office anytime by calling us at 404-612-8226. You can email us at district6@fultoncountyga.gov, tweet with us at ComJoanGarner, and of course, friend us on Facebook. Until we meet again, I am your District 6 Fulton County Commissioner, Joan Garner. Thanks for watching The District.